Kodak Retina IIIC. This one has got problems, don't they all? Something really odd about that front door. It really doesn't want to open. It doesn't want to close either. It gets stiff at about that point. Something very funny going on there. So what's the problem with this one? Well, the light meter's off. The needle, as you can see there, is halfway across the scale. If you bash on it, it sort of moves a wee bit. Doesn't seem to react to light at all. Vaguely possible that the movement's off its pivots. I won't know until I have a look inside. Of course, the chances that the meter will be accurate, even if I do get it to work, are not particularly good. What else have we got? The shutter. Well, it feels like it's cocking, but it's not cocking. The shutter release fails to release up here. Let's just see if the blades open and close as I swing the film advance back. No, they don't. So it's not even cocking to that extent. Sometimes you get a problem where the shutter almost cocks, doesn't quite cock. And as the film advance lever returns to the rest position, you see the blades open and then close again. It's not that. So the shutter's definitely very unhappy. The meter, apart from anything else, I could tell that the top was loose. And as you can see, I could just unscrew that with my fingers. I think having a little look inside is probably the thing to do. To remove the top cover. Oh, that's loose. Someone has certainly been investigating this. Screws on the top cover, they're loose. Why should that surprise me? Yes, both loose. See this strap lug at this end's completely bashed in. That means the camera's been dropped. That does point to possible damage of the meter. It may well have dropped. Movement may well have jumped off its pivots as a result of that shock. So I'm going to hold my finger on the top of the meter so I don't lift the meter up as I'm lifting the top cover off. That's the little rubber pad that goes on the inside of the top cover and holds down the meter at this end. So if you see a little rubber pad like that and you wonder what it is, yes, it is important and it needs to go back. I'll lift the meter off. Doesn't look like anyone's been into that. That meter needle is all over the place. It really, yeah, that's not looking happy. Let's just strip a few pieces off here that are in my way. What can we say looking at the top of the camera? The shutter cocking rack appears to be present. This is very dirty in here. What happens when we try and cock it? The cocking action at the rack here is perfectly normal. It's not cocking the shutter. Okay. The look of the shutter blades, that looks like corrosion to me on there. It's not severe corrosion, but it's corrosion all the same, so it's probably been subjected to some moisture at some stage. Let's open up the front of the shutter and have a quick look, see what we can see. So I'll remove the lock screw, putting that carefully to one side so I don't lose it. I need a toothpick now to rotate this. You're better to use a toothpick or a bamboo skewer or something of a similar nature to unscrew this retaining ring. Otherwise, if you use the tip of your screwdriver or your tweezers, very likely you'll slip off and you'll scar this all up, in which case no one will see it except the next technician and they'll call you all sorts of names. Right. It's off with this, off with this. Now, can I see what's happening as I cock the shutter? Let's put the retaining ring back on the front. just to keep the speed settings cam plate in position. That's a little bit reluctant to go on there, but it does go on. Now what I'm mostly watching here is, let's find out, see what's happening. It doesn't look to me like it's cocking far enough. Let's see what the timing's like on that gear at the front. I don't know how much work's been done on this. Now the timing here is correct, so our problem is not there. It may be that the shutter's been removed from the body and put back, and so it's not timed correctly at this point. Put that back on there, remove the shutter, cock it manually and see what happens. It may be that the shutter cocking rack is good at this end but bad at the other. I don't know. There's a lot of scratches on the retaining ring, so someone's been in there. That rear lens group's quite loose. It should only be finger tight, but it wasn't really finger tight. And the diaphragm blades here show more of this marking, this corrosion type marking. Let's cock this manually. It cocks, it fires. Okay, so basically the shutter's a goer, but its timing was out relative to this piece here. Let's see if we can we'll advance it one more notch or so and see how we go. Oh yeah, that's certainly out. Let's try it there. That's nearly enough. Let's advance that one notch. No, not quite. Here we go. So the problem was the timing. The timing of the gear at this point to the curved rack here, which tells me that the shutter had been removed from the camera and put back, and the timing was just not correct. Well, the shutter needed servicing anyway, so no great loss there. But it does mean that there's no serious problem with the shutter cocking rack or anything of that nature, which is good, because the fewer parts need to be replaced, the better. Now this business here, this front that doesn't want to fold, what's going on there? That is a bit of a mystery. I thought that the spring in here on the shutter release shaft might have fallen out, that somebody might have removed this, let the spring fall in and it's dropped in behind, and that's causing some friction in here. That doesn't appear to be the case. Well, that's going to be something to find out, I suppose. Anyway, I've got to strip the overburden off here. We need to get this thing down into pieces, so I will start removing stuff from the top. The rangefinder is present. A little bit dirty, but it's not bad. There's not as many glass air surfaces on the rangefinders of the 3 large C cameras compared to the 3 small C cameras, and as a result they suffer less from haze and dirt in the finder. A bit of grit and rubbish here. You can see a bit of corrosion at this point. That means it's possibly been splashed at some stage. Screw's a bit tight. There's a spacer shim washer under there, which I need to make sure I don't lose, and there was one under here too. Those washers are easily lost though. Very good at getting away in the cleaning process, so I've got to take care with those. Let's take this post off. We know the cocking rack works. It didn't really show any sign of wear at the top to speak of. At the bottom, I don't know, it's too dirty to tell what its state is there. I'll know after it's cleaned. Start dismantling this Film Advanced stuff. All of this has to come apart because it is sticky with old dried grease. Most cameras have had some service at some stage in their life because they tend not to run for decades and decades without it. But particularly, oh look, there's something interesting. That little piece of plastic here, let's get that bloody thing out. There. Now that's a piece of the meter. That joined on here, there's other mates falling off. And that's where it's sat over this post here. Well, a piece of loose plastic like that is going to fall in amongst the gears and generally cause you problems. So better to get rid of it and be done with it. The meter is actually trapped in quite well by the slot in the top cover here, which runs into the around the frame of the meter, and that rubber pad that went under the top cover. Between the two of them they keep the meter quite secure. Take out the shutter release button. Let's take the clip off there and its spring. Let's remove that screw and its spring. And that's pretty much the top of the cam. Why is this back door so reluctant to shut? Is it a bit sticky with something? It doesn't feel particularly bad. To find out about that. Oh, the back catch release cover, the tripod surround thing here. That was a bit reluctant to come loose. Could be some corrosion under that, we'll find out. Oh, it doesn't look particularly bad. Be careful not to lose that spring. Now I have to start getting the leatherettes off. Got to get the leatherette off there. The leatherette looks quite well worn. It came off easily enough. I can't really tell from the state of that whether that's been off before. In other words, whether the camera's been stripped down. So a little rubber pad's missing here. That's minor nuisance. Now the leatherettes, it's coming away pretty well. It feels a bit brittle. I'll work back towards the middle. The adhesive is often sticks differently to the chromed brass trim than it does to the aluminium camera chassis. And so this is peeling off quite well from the chrome brass trim, but it's stuck better to the body. There we go, it's off now. Excuse me. You can see some patches of corrosion here. This white crap, that's all corrosion of the aluminium. That means that moisture has got in there at some stage. Typically with cameras that can be putting the camera down on a wet surface, a wet tabletop, or down on the tiles beside the pool, or something of a similar nature, or God forbid on a sandy towel down at the beach. Just take this chrome trim off the bottom. And remove the lock lever. Remove the release lever. I'll take its spring off in a minute. At the base of the camera is the tripod socket loose. Oh, that screw wasn't too bad. They're not tight, but they're not loose. Frequently they're very loose, and that tripod socket is virtually flapping in the wind. I'm going to take the front door off. I don't know why it's reluctant to fold back, whether it's to do with the door itself or whether it's to do with the sliding mechanism here. We'll take this off, that'll isolate that problem. We'll see if the front will slide in and out. It's got a spacer washer at the bottom, probably one at the top, it did. And our spring from the film advance, we want to be careful not to lose that. And I'll put the shutter release shaft back in there so nothing falls to bits while I'm doing this. Yeah, that's very sticky. Yeah, what? It is very stiff. It gets back as far as that, doesn't want to go any further. One thing that can do that is if the camera's been thumped on the base. If that's been given a thump, effectively it narrows up the casting at this point. There's no room for things to move back inside it. It's certainly a possibility, and it's certainly something I'll have to investigate. But in the meantime, I better carry on stripping this down.